हरेति अनुक्तः सुयमान सुयज्ञ सुयज्ञ आकृति सुनूरम अमरान अथ दक्षिणायम लोकत्रयस्य महितिं हर्यद् आर्तिम् स्वयंभुवेन मनुना हरिरिति अनुक्तः जातो रुचेरजनयत् अजनयत् सुयमान् सुयज्ञम् आकुतिषु नरमरान् अथा दक्षिणायाम् लोकत्रयस्य महितिं हर्यद् आर्तिम् स्वयंभुवेन मनुना हरिरिति अनुक्तः Please repeat. Mataji's. Okay. Jataha was born. Ruchehe from Prajapati Ruchi. Okay. All right. I'll just read the one on database. Ruchihe of the wife of Prajapati. Ajanyat gave birth. Suyaman, headed by Suyama. Suyagya, Suyagya. Akuti Sunuhu, of the son of Akuti. Amaran, the demigods. Atha, thus, Dakshinayam, unto the wife of the name Dakshina. Loka, the planetary systems. Trayasya, of the three. Mahitim, very great. Aharat, diminished. Yat, all those. Artim, distresses. Swayambhuvena, by the Manu named Swayambhuva. Manuna, by the father of mankind. Harihi, Hari, iti, thus. Anuktaha, named. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The Prajapati first begat Suyagya in the womb of his wife Akuti, and then Suyagya begat demigods headed by Suyama in the womb of the wife Dakshina. Suyagya, as the Indradev, diminished very great miseries in the three planetary systems, upper, lower, and intermediate. And because he so diminished the miseries of the universe, he was later called Hari by the great father of mankind, namely Swayambhuva Manu. Purport. In order to guard against the invention of unauthorized incarnations, God, by the fanciful, less intelligent persons, the name of the father of the bona fide incarnation is also mentioned in the authorized revealed scriptures. No one, therefore, can accept as an incarnation of the Lord if his father's name, as well as the name of the village or place in which he appears, is not mentioned by the authorized scriptures. In the Bhagavata Purana, the name of Kalki incarnation, which is to take place in almost 400,000 years, is mentioned along with the name of his father and the name of the village in which he will appear. A sane man, therefore, does not accept any cheap edition of an incarnation without reference to the authorized scriptures. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshurunvitamena Tasmai Shigre Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shiotapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamcha Shri Rupam Sagar Jatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhu Vitam Savaditam Parijana Samitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Ravita Shri Vishakhan Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinavanda Jagat Pade Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishvanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchakalpatarabhescha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Tiname Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tiname Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Pashtate Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakti Vinyanananda Mayam Devam Dharmashpakti Kakrit Mataram Sarvavityanam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vagishe yasya vadane Lakshmi yasya bhakshasi yasya astri hidaya samittam nishimam aham bhaji. Okay, so on to the 7th chapter of the second canto. Speaking about the scheduled incarnations with specific functions. So, Srila Prabhupada here mainly hits on this point of in the purport of how an incarnation is authorized and how one should accept an incarnation. So here we're going to start to see all the different lines of different lineages also being described, as Prabhupada says in the purport. There's a specific reason for that. Just like you're seeing when you read through the Bhagavatam, you're seeing so many names. They're not there just to bore you and make you fall asleep. But they're there in order to have authority. So the Veda means authority. Veda means authority because any fool like myself can walk up and say, I am God. What do you know? You guys are all born in the West. Which one of you studied the Shastra to understand what God is, who God is, and when He's scheduled to come? How do you know? You don't know anything. I was born in a great place called Nepal in the village of Kapan, and my father's name was Narayan and my mother's name was Santa. Santa, I think. I can't, maybe I forget how to say it exactly. I haven't, but and if you're lucky enough to see my lotus feet, you'll see all the imprints that Krishna has on his feet too, like the moon and the 4 pots that are there and the conch. And yeah, if you're lucky enough, you'd be able to know that I'm actually Krishna. I'm actually an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But you haven't studied Shastra, but they actually described in there that the Lord is scheduled to appear like this. How do you know? How can you, without even knowing Shastra, because Prabhupada says one is meant to know the incarnation of Godhead according to Shastra by the name of Father and Father's name as well as the name of the village as well as the place which He appears. We're meant to approach the authorized scriptures and then decide whether this is a bona fide incarnation or not. Have any of you done that? Lord Chaitanya appeared, Lord Krishna appeared, and over again we're saying, okay, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but how do you know? How do you know? We haven't looked. How do you know that I'm not God or you're not God? How? Mm-hmm. I'll do in some time. Right now, I'm exhibiting my Leela. In time, you will see my unmanifested form. You will see my Virata Rupa. I will reveal unto you when you're sincere enough. As you surrender unto me, I shall reward you accordingly. So, what's the problem? We have accepted what the Acharyas have said. Yeah, that's a bona fide answer. But how can you tell me that I'm not God? Or you're not God? What is the qualification of God? You have to understand first. It's okay, there's the place, birth, and that may not always be available to us, or we may not have studied it enough. But Prabhupada the Bhagavatam, when you read through the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada states in the introduction that if one studies the Srimad Bhagavatam with a lot of attention, he will be able to defeat any philosophy and be able to defeat all atheism. So how, this is actually Mayavad philosophy, what I'm speaking, is another sort of atheism. Yeah. Yeah, God is the supreme controller, but I can't control when I pass through. Simple. God is the supreme controller. He is Sad Aishvarya Purnam. He's complete in all 6 opulences. Do I look like a very beautiful person? No. Do I have a lot of wealth? No. I'm a brahmachari. I have no money at all. I'm Vamanadev. I'm a beggar. I have no money. Am I independent? Not in any way at all. I'm completely dependent on my mind, on my senses. I'm dependent on the world. None of these things add up to God. Neither am I very renounced, although I'm in the renounced order of life, still very attached. Neither do I have strength. You can see my little arms. How much can they do? I don't lift the Bhagavatams. So how much knowledge do I have? I've read so much of Srila Prabhupada's books. So much means I've read through the Bhagavatam once and at least Chaitanya Charitamrita and then reading over it again. But how much can I remember? Barely anything. Not much at all. Well, how much can I remember of what I studied in university? Or what, going beyond that, I can't remember anything before the age of maybe 6, 4, 5. I don't know. I don't even know the memory that I have when that was. Like my earliest memory, I don't even know when that was. I remember the memory, but I don't know when that was, how old I was, what I was doing, what year it was. I don't remember any of that. Knowledge. So what knowledge do I have? So people, especially, you don't see this so much in the West, right? Like people just claiming to be God. I guess you do a little bit, but like people who claim to be Jesus, but it's not so common. It's not like any guy and then they don't put the guy on a throne and then worship him. The whole country starts worshiping him, or at least a section of the country starts worshiping him. You don't really get that. Because this is quite a culture shock that this can happen also to the devotees who grew up in the West, and myself also. I mean, never really understood, never really thought about this whole idea of that you could be God. There was always God, and then there was always you. At least that's what I understood as a young kid growing up in that culture. My extended family were Vaishnavas, and so I guess that understanding was naturally there. But you'll see so many so-called incarnations, just like Sai Baba is another famous one in India. You've heard Bhakti Vikas Maharaj speak about it so much. Just worship like he's God. Where is he mentioned in the Shastra? Nowhere. Nowhere is he mentioned. Nowhere is he mentioned as the incarnation of God. Or does he display any symptoms of God, of the qualities of God, of the absolute truth? Not at all. So how is it that people are so foolish to accept a mere mortal, a person who is a fool, who is of demoniac nature, to be God? How is that possible? People are ignorant of the definition. Ignorance, right? Ignorance is the prime factor here. But you're born in India. You're born in India. What is India? But it's the land of the pious. It's Bharat Bhumi. One who is born in India, he's meant to preach his philosophy. Why? Because he's favored. He's favored. He's favored by his karma. Krishna consciousness doesn't have any material qualification. It doesn't require any material qualification, but there is favorable situations and unfavorable situations for it. So one who is born in India, generally, there's pious. Esham tvanta gatam papam janana punya, what is it? Karmanam te dvanda moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridha vrataha. So one who has acted piously in the life before and in this life, one who is free of delusion, moha nirmukta, I think that's the three categories. Te dvanda gatam papam. So one who is free of sin, and one who is free of sin, one who has acted piously in this life and in the life before, and who is free of delusion, they can come to the point of dridha vrataha, absolute exclusive devotion to the Supreme Personality Godhead. They can attain that, bhajante mam. They can attain that ability to worship the Supreme Personality Godhead. But what factor in there have they not, is not completely clear yet. Okay, they're A lot of them are, if you go to India, go to some pious places, you'll find people like Vishnuchitta Prabhu, Prabhu, who have never committed a sin in their life. they've never touched a woman. They've never even seen intoxication. Never took intoxication. Never ate meat in their life. Never. What is gambling is? You got to be crazy. And they sung all the Vedic hymns as they grew up. This is true. This is not. I'm not just saying this. You'll find people like this for the Americans and for us who grew up in the West. Like, how is that possible? How is it possible? Well, you're born in the land of pious activities. The Bharat Bhumi is this land of piety. So when you have like that, then you don't perform sinful activities. So one is free of sin. That means they've acted piously in their last life and in this life. But they're not free of illusion, of delusion, of duality, of illusion. This word is used, duality of illusion. They are not free. They're still entrapped in that. And what does that do to them? Well, it's still contains that demoniac nature. That demoniac nature which Krishna describes, pravritim cha nivritim cha janana vidur asuraha na saucham na picharo na satyam teshu vidyate. They do not know what is to be done and they do not know what is not to be done. So, that is of demoniac nature. If one does not know who to worship and who not to worship, that is of demoniac nature. Because if one worships a false idol, a false god, then what is his destination? Ants eating snakes. That pastime is given in regards to Ramanuja Acharya. So his destination is unknown, but it's known to be hellish. His destination is hellish. Why? Because it is offensive. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that those who are envious, I cast them into the, what does he say? I cast them into hell. Repeated birth and death. So, So, this manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya hi upadritaha is the age of Kali. Kali asmin yuge jinaha. Manda sumanda matayo. That people's lives are short-lived, they're quarrelsome, they're lazy, misguided, unlucky, always disturbed. So, the pious classes of men in India who do not understand clearly the verdict of Shastra, they fall under this category of they may not be quarrelsome, but they're lazy, they're misguided, they're unlucky, therefore they're always disturbed. Some of them may even look so peaceful. You know, you got your Sadguru and you've got your Paramahamsa Nityananda, Yogananda, so many of them are there. They may even look so-called peaceful. But actually their destination, because ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss. If you don't know, then everything is good. That's why we have some understanding of that, is when you're with your friends, you get high. Why? Because you forget all your problems. There's a song like that, right? I smoke away all my problems. This is some song I remember my friends used to hear. Wiz Khalifa or something like that. That's you know about that, Nelly. You know about that. So, smoke away all your problems. So they're in ignorance. They're in complete ignorance. And it's good to be in ignorance for them. Good to means for them they don't want to come out of it. Therefore, that is a symptom of laziness. If one doesn't want to come out of ignorance, that is a symptom of laziness. What is that laziness? That it is lazy to study who is God, what is the nature of God, and how one should accept God, and how one should worship God, how one should worship Krishna. And why is it that this is there? Because they have decided to continue their material existence. Prahlad Maharaj says like that. For those who have decided to continue their material existence, not any advice from others. Let me pull this up. Do you know what number verse this is? This is what? 7.5. I guess I can just search Material Krishna. Okay, 7.530. So Prahlad Maharaj replied, because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has been already chewed. Their inclinations towards Krishna are never aroused, either by the instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. So, give me 1 second. So this is their situation. Because if you actually analyze, if you go ahead and look at all these so-called incarnations of Krishna or of God, they call themselves God. If you see why is it they have a following, is because they, you could say, award them, or they put forward the idea of opulence, money. Money, your material existence will become better. You'll have a better life. You'll have more money. You'll have a more peaceful life. You'll have a bigger house. You'll have nice children. This is the preaching of all these rascals. That I'll simply click my finger and you'll have all this gold. All you have to do is worship me. All your children will become very intelligent. All you have to do is worship me. This is their preaching. So, people who worship such people, they have decided to continue their material existence. They have made a decision that, okay, I want to worship for the reason of making money, to continue their materialistic life, their uncontrolled senses, to satisfy their senses, their minds. So they make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. So their inclinations towards Krishna can never be aroused, are never aroused either by instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. So they have decided that I want to continue my material existence. I want to pursue lust, greed, anger. I want to pursue these things. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that these three things, lust, greed, and anger, are the gateways to hell. So this is the point that's being made here, that such people, if we analyze their activities and their inclinations, it is all towards making your material life more comfortable, more better, more enjoyable. Therefore, even when you approach them with the Srimad Bhagavatam, with the Bhagavad Gita, they just can't go past it. Why? Because they've decided that I want to continue my material existence. For such people, you can't do anything. Even the devotees, Krishna consciousness is not something you can force upon someone. Krishna consciousness is done actually one should become inspired to be Krishna conscious. It's not that I sit up here and I preach, and then from me comes inspiration for you to do everything. But actually one should be self-inspired. Anybody that takes up Krishna consciousness, you'll notice most of them are self-inspired. In the beginning, it may be self-inspired just to improve themselves, whether it means by becoming detached from material life a little bit or not. But you can see that they're self-inspired. And by the instructions of the sadhu, of the spiritual master, that within their hearts, as Prabhupada describes in the 3rd canto in regards to Daksha and Lord Shiva, But the Vaishnava is so expert that he takes the inclinations of the materialists and he's able to turn it and into 180 degrees towards Krishna. So, but the person has to be willing. Because devotional service, part of it is that there is knowledge and detachment. That is a symptom of advancement, or it is to some extent a requirement. Because without that, you can't make advancement in devotional service. Without knowledge and renunciation, it has to be there. So these people, they're so attached to the idea of their materialistic life, they're not open to the idea of an alternative form of life, of Krishna consciousness, then there's no use. Just like so many people come to this temple, and so many young people come, older people come, but no matter how much you speak to them, no matter how many times you defeat them, because they've just decided to continue, they don't want to change, they want to continue their material existence, they're attached and dragged by their senses, there's no question of the Krishna consciousness arising within them. There's no question of it. So one has to be willing to take up Krishna consciousness. One has to be willing to accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to authorized scripture. Only then can one make advancement. Because all the Sai Babas and all that, they do so much worship, so much sacrifices, so many of these different Vedic rituals they do, but it's of no use, absolutely no use. Shava eva hi kevalam. Of no use, absolutely just a waste of time. It's better to be a complete materialist than one who falsely accepts a false God. It is a better position because you still have a chance. You don't have a misconception. It's harder to rectify a misconception than to come to a level of correct conception. It's harder to rectify a misconception because they become attached. They become attached to this Sai Baba. They become attached to this Paramahamsa Nityananda. And they become attached to whatever this Paramahamsa Yogananda and all these rascals that are there. They become attached to all these people. And so they cannot let go. So then they have to go cycle of birth, death, old age, disease, cycle of birth, death, old age, disease. How many more millions of lives? Who knows? Simply because of insincerity, because of laziness. Too lazy to try to understand with some intelligence. No intelligence. Sumanda matayo. No intelligence at all. So one should... What is intelligence? Well, intelligence is not that you have to be very smart, but you just have to be sincere enough to approach the right place to learn. So Prabhupada is mainly making that point here, that one should not just accept things blindly. That is not to be done. That is foolishness. Hare Krishna. Jacob? Yeah, I can't see your eyes maybe because of the reflections. But so one should accept the incarnation of God according to authority, just like you can say, like the Sri Vaishnava sometimes may argue, where is Lord Chaitanya described? Well, he's described in a hidden way. Our acharyas have revealed in the 12th canto that's given that there will be a great personality, the incarnation of Godhead, who will come and spread the holy name all over the world, in every nook and corner. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come like that. And so there's many different sort of incarnations that are there. There's the Guna avatars, then there's the Lila avatars, there's the Purusha avatars, there's the scheduled incarnations. There's the one who perform particular activities. There's Lila avatars, Shakti Vesh avatars are there, Manvantara avatars, Yuga avatars, that was true, Purusha avatars. So is it 6? So six different categories of avatars. And so, actually in this Chaitanya Charitamrita, if I can find it now, I've lost it seems. Let me see. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Let me see here. The incarnation, where it describes what is incarnation. 22 or something like that. Chapter 20. Madhya chapter 20. So Prabhupada describes I think 22, there's a purport. Oh, the 22 doesn't have a purport. Okay, I've lost it here. Let me see if I can. Okay, here we go. So this is in, actually it's in, Madhya 20, 263 to 64. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Krishna Das Kaviraj, the following verses summarizes the principles of incarnation. Srishti hetu hi ye murti prapanche avatare se aishvara murta avatare nama dhare maye tita paryavyome sabhara avasthana vishve avatari dhare avatara nama. The avatar or incarnation of Godhead descends from the kingdom of God for material manifestation, and the particular form of the personality of Godhead who so descends is called an incarnation or avatar. Such incarnations are situated in the spiritual world, the kingdom of God. When they descend to material creation, they assume the name avatar. And then Prabhupada describes that there are various kinds of avatars, such as Purusha avatars, Guna avatars, Lila avatars, Shaktivesh avatars, Manvantar avatar, and Yuga avatars, all appealing on schedules all over the universe. But Lord Krishna is the primary Lord, the fountainhead of all avatars. Krishna tu Bhagavan Swayam. That's not in this, right? So Lord Shri Krishna descends for the specific purpose of mitigating the anxieties of the pure devotees who are very anxious to see him in his original Vrindavan pastimes. Therefore, the prime purpose of Krishna avatar is to satisfy his unalloyed devotee. So the avatars, they descend directly from the spiritual world, and the avatars are not considered they do not have a material form. Whereas you see these rascals who claim to be avatars, they're completely controlled by the modes of material nature. They're lusty. Most of them actually, if you look at overall, most of them have a lot of accusations of rape and sexual assault and abuse and all these things. A lot of them are very ugly, die of very horrible causes. So these people, although they claim to be avatars, but they cannot choose when to leave their body. They do not exhibit any sort of symptom of avatar. They do not have the power of avatar. So, but their false claim completely bewilders people somehow or other, and sends them to hell. So this is the issue with just accepting things without any authority. And so a sane man therefore does not accept any cheap edition of an incarnation without reference to the authorized scriptures. So one has to be careful. Luckily for us, we have Prabhupada's books, very easy to understand, simple for the simple, not very difficult at all. You just read the books, understand very easily Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one should worship him exclusively without any material motive. That is the main point of the Bhagavatam, that it is devoid of jnana, karma, and avritam. It is completely devoid of all these things. It is anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttama. That is, bhakti is the topmost thing. One should engage in that. So that is the purpose of the Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the purpose of all of Srila Prabhupada's books, is to bring us to that point of constant glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should be constantly engaged in that. If you read in this, in the Prachetas, when Lord Shiva, the song sung by Lord Shiva, he mentions at the end that one should constantly be chanting the holy names. And he mentions that the reason that I am able to do this is because I received it from Brahma, from my own authorized guru. And therefore he tells the Pracheta that you must also constantly chant this. And in those purports, I'm not quoting, I'm paraphrasing, Prabhupada mentions over and over again in that one should become completely situated in Krishna consciousness, chanting 24 hours a day. Your 16 rounds is not enough. Your 16 rounds is not enough. I'm not telling you to chant 64 rounds, but what that means is that it is not enough to think, okay, I chanted my 16 rounds, now I can, as Prabhupada would say, I can do whatever the hell I like now. That is not the point. So tatam kirta yantamam, that is the point. Why 16 rounds? So we can engage in glorification of Krishna, in Nam Sankirtan, in varieties of ways, because we're quite conditioned not to be able to just sit and chant, as Prabhupada said many times in his purports, that many people want to go to Vrindavan and just sit and chant, but this is not recommended. One is recommended to engage in practical devotional service. One is recommended to engage in all these different types of devotional service, and if one is intelligent, he can come to a platform realizing that while doing these things, that actually I'm remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they are non-different from chanting His names. So one should be very careful to try to engage himself 24 hours a day and not waste a single moment. That is very difficult to do. And it's very difficult for our minds to handle that if you realize it. You listen to a lecture and then you're like, okay, now I can go and watch something that's like not directly related to Krishna consciousness. Because I've done that. I tick that off my box. I'm meant to listen to a lecture. I'm meant to chant my 16 rounds. I do my services. Now I can do whatever the hell I like. I can watch whatever I like. It may be not completely like exactly full-on material, but it's not exactly fully Krishna conscious either. It's just in like a halfway zone, and then we make the excuse, well, it's for my preaching, and it's helpful for my preaching. So one has to be careful in how he manages his time. That is the symptom of a great devotee. If you're in Rupa Goswami describes that a devotee, he doesn't waste a single moment of his life. And how is that done? So by constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is done through service, that is done through chanting, that is done through going out and distributing the holy name, and through the means of Sankirtan by Harinam, chanting and dancing, and by book distribution. Both have to be done. Our Guru Maharaj was very pushy in this regard of chanting more. He said to us, we got this whole big building, but where's the kirtan? He said that 3 times to me. He said 3 times, where's the kirtan? Why is there no kirtan going on? We should have more kirtan. More kirtan. This is very important. It is very important to be engaged in chanting the holy name of the Lord. It is very, very important. One should not neglect that at all. And so one should not only engage in chanting japa, but it is also prescribed that one should engage in chanting the holy name of the Lord in congregation, coming together to chant the holy name of the Lord. Sankirtan, glorifying the Lord together. So that means engaging in chanting Hare Krishna together with mridanga, kartals. And like Prabhupada says, simple Hare Kirtan, man, nothing crazy, complicated. Simple. Prabhupada's tune is very blissful. We're doing it every day on the streets when we can, when it doesn't rain. We're going out every day in Midtown and chanting for about an hour and a half, depending on, between an hour and a half. And people are very satisfied. If everybody that sees us, if you notice, if you look around and notice, everyone becomes very enlivened by it. People in the cars, they stop, they pull their windows down, they listen, they say thank you in a, not directly with their words, but you can see that they appreciate it. Or people that work in those shops every day, they see us every day, day in, day out, very enthusiastically chanting, not moded out. And like, Hare Krishna, okay, we have to, our spiritual master told us we have to do, you do Harinam, okay, so let's have 2 guys, one guy play the kartal horribly and the other guy try to keep the mridanga together. and just walk down the street with no enthusiasm at all. That's not particularly following the instructions of the spiritual master. It should be done with enthusiasm. So we're trying to do it with enthusiasm, and you can see that people become enlivened by it. People are quite shocked by it. They're like, these guys are doing the same thing every day. What the heck is going on? Same mantra, same tune, same beats, same thing, but they look blissed out. Because it is blissful. Even if nobody, Atlanta is such a place that nobody is there. It's just like you go there and it's like 10, 12, 20 people walking around. One day there's like 50 people walking around. You're like, wow, that's a lot of people. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The point, Prabhupada makes this point very clearly, especially some of those purports in Prithu Maharajas and Prachetas, that if one simply takes the instruction of the spiritual master with gravity, with seriousness, with, what is this word that, utmost importance, but this, when you look upon the deity with awe and reverence, this word he uses, then Krishna consciousness becomes very easy. Prabhupada says that. You find it Krishna consciousness very difficult. Prabhupada says, gives you the solution to make it very easy. How? Take the spiritual master's instructions with reverence. That is if you want Krishna consciousness to be easy, take the instruction of the spiritual master with reverence. What does that mean? Take it seriously. Take it seriously. Don't half-hearted. I'm preaching to myself also. Mainly myself. No half-heartedness. The one takes it up and seriously, one takes it as his life and soul. That is the secret of spiritual life. So we're able to go out and give people authorized Mahamantra. We're able to give people authorized vibration. We've been authorized, all those devotees who are initiated and who are not initiated yet, but have taken to the process. You are authorized to give spiritual knowledge, because you come in the parampara of bona fide acharyas. You come in a line of disciplic succession that is giving proper knowledge. So that as long as we are repeating and staying consistent with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness as given by Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta, as our own spiritual master, then the vibration that goes on will be effective. Even though we may not be pure, but the sound vibration may act purely upon the consciousness of someone else, because it is authorized. We are authorized to give spiritual knowledge. That is the meaning of taking initiation, that one becomes authorized in that line. And one who knows Krishna consciousness, he can take that position of a guru. He can take that position as a guru, one who knows the science of Krishna consciousness, whatever he may be. He may be from a lower birth, higher birth, whatever it may be. He has that ability to give Krishna consciousness to others, simply on the strength of his being initiated by his bona fide spiritual master. Of course, one should read and understand and not preach bogus philosophy. And you should not be too eager to preach too early also. You should first understand and then preach. You can speak, but it's advised to first, you should study Prabhupada's books nicely first, understand everything in proper order, how to reply, how to understand, how to teach, how to do all these things. First, you should get trained up in that. We should get trained up in that. And then we can teach. If people are taking shelter of us and people want to take guidance of us, we have to have proper knowledge. We have to have proper understanding, proper behavior. Without that, if you have proper understanding but no proper behavior, your preaching is absolutely useless. So you have to start to develop these things if you want to preach. And that is our movement, is preaching movement. So you have to develop these things. It's not a choice. Not everyone will be able to do it, but everyone should strive for it. There's a reason you're reading all these things. You should be able to tell others what you're reading. Otherwise, you're not able to understand clearly. If you can speak it clearly, then you've understood it clearly. If you can't speak clearly and everything is jumbled up and every sentence you say has a fault in it, and presents the philosophy in such a way that it seems like it's faulty, or undermines the authority of the philosophy, undermines the evidence and the authenticity, the how much strength it holds in itself, then it's advised you don't go out and particularly present yourself as a guru. People come and they want to know some things, you may be able to tell them, but like we wouldn't go and start preaching to like say, okay, I'm the guru, I'm giving everything to you. No, our spiritual master can do that. We may not be able to do that. We may be able to do small, but starting small and then working out self into becoming a servant of the guru and preaching his mission and defeating all this rascaldom of impersonalism and voidism and people, this Mayavad philosophy of I am the God and you guys and you worship me. So by both these things, by chanting Hare Krishna, we can purify their consciousness. By distributing these books, they get the association of Srila Prabhupada and knowledge, and naturally renunciation will manifest in their lives, and they'll be able to take up Krishna consciousness as long as they're willing to. Krishna does not force himself. Well, he can, but it's done with love. So we can stick to authorized scriptures like we do with the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and if people can start to recognize that these are authorized scriptures, then the whole society can become uplifted. And naturally, as a byproduct, all these rascals will simply just they themselves will disappear. Just like if a great king is present in the kingdom, no thief will dare to step on that land if he knows what the consequences are. So similarly, all these rascals who claim to God will not even attempt that if people are informed with Srila Prabhupada's books. They won't even try it because they know they'll be kicked in the face with boots. As Prabhupada said, I'll kick him in the face with boots. Everyone shall kick them in the face with boots. Okay, so I'll end my class there. If there's any questions or comments, please feel free to ask. Anything? Mm-hmm.
Yes, one of the questions that I had, you were talking earlier about like some people, they just like so consumed in the material life. So like they don't even want to come close to Krishna consciousness. And so I was wondering if like it would be okay to say like these books here will not just help you with your spiritual life, but they'll also help you with your material life. Or is that kind of like not the right idea I should be giving them?
I mean, like you depend. Like I wouldn't preach that to someone if they were, I'd say on books you may say like whatever. Sometimes Mahotsa Prabhu has the line that what is that? What does the line say? Is help you with your this for your good for your health. What does he say to the? Yeah. Good for your health, whatever. It will be like very like, it won't be like, oh, this will make you money, man. Take this from me. Take this from me. It's not particularly like that. It may like sometimes it seems like when we say it, it hints at that. But we would never preach like, oh, this is gonna help you with your material life. You can when they come to Krishna consciousness, they can like, yeah, you naturally you'll be happier in life. That's there. But we wouldn't preach like, yeah, by taking up this process, you'll make so much money. You'll start to look very beautiful. You wouldn't preach that. That's bogus. So we just teach them about Krishna consciousness. Teach them, life is meant to be lived simply, and you're meant to think highly. You should. We're meant to not live like animals. But by taking natural process of Krishna consciousness, everything becomes satisfied. You don't have to over-endeavor for everything, estimating and defending. This over endeavor is the problem, actually. And so naturally they'll become peaceful. But not that their material life, your material life will improve. We don't preach that, you know. That would be a bogus thing to do. Okay. Anything else? Yes, bro.
So you were kind of talking about like overstepping the guru, and like especially when you're new, like not really presenting yourself as like the authority and trying to become a servant and everything. A lot of times people like have like misconception that like, especially like in like brahmachari ashram, there's like a point in time where you like graduate from like being like a menial servant, and then you start to become, and you can kind of see it in like more senior brahmacharis. It seems like they're living a life which is, they're accepting service, they're, you know, and things like that. They're not actually performing the same menial service. Do you think you could just speak on that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So in regards to that, in regards to becoming more senior in our society, I mean, at least within the Krishna life ashram, what is considered senior is like not very senior at all. Like we're like 25 and 30, and it's like you're like, oh yeah, you've been in the ashram for 3 years, now you're senior, or 4 years, or 5 years, or whatever, 8 years, 9 years. So what is the principle? Well, the principle is that one always has a humble attitude towards devotional service. That the devotee, he is always ready to perform those activities, that whatever is required to keep the movement going. Now in regards to this, in regards to performing menial services and growing senior, how does that work? It's a little bit complicated because, you know, you have to see the situation. But generally when one starts to take up more responsibilities, he doesn't have the ability to perform menial services. For example, I'll give you an example for myself. I was cleaning the bathrooms every day, and then Vishnu Chitta Prabhu chastised me. It was like, what do you have so much time, huh? Like, no, I'm like flat out. I don't have any time. I said, so why are you cleaning the bathrooms? Like, because I want to do it. It's a menial service that I would like to do. I said, well, the thing is that because you're doing that, you're not getting to perform your other services properly. I'm like, that's true. And so he asked me, like, then just have someone else do it. And so I had someone else do it, and then that did help me finish other things which are particularly my service to do. You know, I have my particular service to do, which may not be seen as menial, because it may involve just sitting on a chair and being on a computer or so. So the more responsibility one is this. What does senior means? Well, a senior generally means that he holds more responsibility. So he may not have the ability to perform, menial services. Menial services meaning whatever, cleaning the floor or cleaning the bathrooms or cleaning all these things. And that is also there for the devotees who are coming in. Not that the senior stops performing those things. That's not at all is what is to be done. That you should always be humble enough to do whatever is necessary. But as one goes more senior, he gets more responsibilities. So to perform menial services become more difficult also, because you can't find the time to do it. If you do it, then it hampers the service that you've been given. It puts just roadblock. Just like you could say, I don't know, cooking. You could say cooking is a menial service where you may not have a position and you're not a big guy, but if I cook for a day, if I have to cook in the morning, if I cook lunch, then my whole day is gone. And what I was supposed to get done is not done. But we do it sometimes anyways because that's the need of the hour. So at least what I've seen within the place that we're staying in, I don't see that. At least I don't see that the seniors are becoming relaxed or comfortable in the situation. It's overall seeing what I see, at least. Even I see my own seniors serving me sometimes. Anyway, some of the things I don't want to say, but they'll just randomly, I'll be out, my clothes are not done. When I come back the next day or that day, all my clothes are folded and in my locker. who did it. I check the cameras because I have that ability. And it's like, Vishnu Chitta Prabhu or Mahotsa Prabhu or Kalki used to do it all the time to me because I was a little more lazy back then and forgetful. Or Mitravan Prabhu. So, or whenever I've asked a little bit senior devotee to do something, they've always done it. And it's like, hey Prabhu, this is the need of the hour. It's like, we need this to be done. And it's like, okay. So it has to be seen, because sometimes being in the position that sometimes the general devotees are in, who are not in management, who are not dealing with responsibilities, it seems like, well, what's going on? Because it is quite hard to see what's going on, because a lot of things go on, just like, and it's quite crazy. Sometimes you plan out your day, and then everything you plan you cannot do, because things come up, meetings come up, dealing with other devotees come up, random things come up all the time. So sometimes even if your day looks free, you don't put yourself on anything or do have a particular service, because you know your day is going to be just jacked up or just like completely filled up with other things to do. And those are very important. So those responsibilities that they hold are generally it's very, very important to deal with that for them. So you have to see, it's like, if he's senior but he has no responsibilities, but then he's not doing anything, then you should see there's an issue. If he's senior but he doesn't have responsibility within the temple of management or dealing with one particular field, and he's not willing to clean the floor, he's not willing to cook, he's not willing to do any menial service because he's a senior, he just wants to give classes and whatever, I don't know, give classes and read, but there is services to go on, and he's not 60, 70, 80 years old, then you have to kind of be like, okay, then there's a question. But if there's responsibility, then we have to kind of let that be, because if we were in those shoes, you would understand how difficult it is to be in that position of responsibility, how much gravity it holds, how much difficulties you have to go through constantly, and how much of your time gets sacrificed, how many days sometimes you go without being able to read, or just sometimes it feels like you're not even, this is hard to be, it feels like it's difficult to be Krishna conscious sometimes in those positions, because you're dealing with so much. You have to deal with, like Vishnu Chitta Prabhu, how much stuff does he have to deal with? My God, he's on the phone all the time with things that I would never want to deal with. Insurance, bank, construction, architects, all these things is very difficult. So it's austerity in itself. Like in case of Mahotsa Prabhu, raising donations, keeping things going in this temple. It's quite straining to the mind, because you have to understand it's not just physical work, it's also mental. Like I may not do any physical work today, but I can be mentally drained completely. So it has to be seen. It has to be seen. It can't be black or white, because if we're not careful in that regard, then our own spiritual life can also be at stake. Because Teresa, Hare Krishna, you good? You're okay? So one has to be careful, because if one starts to have that mentality that this person is lazy and this person is not doing anything and is just sitting around, then our spiritual life will be affected, because they're the same people that brought us to the level of spiritual life that we're at. And so that becomes offensive to Guru, because they are Guru. They're Shiksha Guru. Whether we may accept it or not, by their instructions, we were able to come up to the level of devotional service, chanting 16 rounds, following 4 regulative principles, and just going on with our services. So you have to be very careful in that regard of criticism, because if it is not done with proper understanding, then you're in big trouble. Krishna does not like that, because that devotee's going and really working his butt off. And because we're not able to see that, we criticize that and we think of them as low and useless and lazy, then we're in trouble. Then your Bhakti Lata Bij becomes choked up. And then you start to question why you have difficulties. Why am I having so much difficulties? Maybe we should think about why we have difficulties. It's simple, it's offense. So one has to be intelligent. It can't be in the mode of passion. One cannot criticize others in the mode of passion. It won't be valid. It won't be valid because you're looking through a lens of passion. It's just like, or ignorance. It's just like somebody may come. Sometimes this happens to those devotees who do menial services too. You've been working your butt off all day. You've been just constantly from one thing to another, and then the authority comes and tells you, well, you've had so much time to read and chant today. Why don't you do one more thing? You're like, well, I've done so much, and I've been just constantly on my, or you like got like 5 rounds left. It's like, why do you have rounds left? And it's like, why do you have rounds left? You had so much time in the day. Well, I didn't. The point is that we can't see everything all the time. So it's better to be, especially in dealing with our seniors or those who have guided us in devotion service, better to give them benefit of the doubt and continue in our services that we've been given. As long as there's no outrightly bogus things going on, it's not like they're just, as long as, if this, like I was saying, if the senior has no responsibility, has nothing to do, has no thing, and he's just sitting around, eating all day, sleeping, not doing anything, then it's like comes into questions like, well, what services are you doing? Like it's been like weeks, months, and there's nothing going on. You're not going out on books. You're not doing any services in the temple, and we don't see any tangible what's going on. That can be there, and that is also done with a humble attitude. But one has to be careful because there's a lot of things we cannot see. Because it is quite a difficult position to be in, especially in the position of management. There's so much stuff to deal with. It's unnecessarily, what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, that organized religion is like unnecessary, what is it? Necessary evil? What is that? That's there? Organized religion is like, it's like necessary evil or something like that. That it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. There's going to be so many faults, and you have to understand that there's devotees. They're also, they're also becoming purified. But so we have to be a little bit considerate of these things. Not that you expect everything to be perfect. We will simply just crush ourselves if we do that. So some of those things. Do you have anything to say, Kalki Prabhu, in this regard?
Hare Krishna. I mean, a lot of things can be said. At least, like personally, I mean, one thing that's helpful. I mean, if someone is like feeling like, oh, there's like some fault with somebody or whatever, there may be like something there, but like one can like speak with somebody about that and get like perspective on the situation. But one thing too is that there may be like so many other like good things, because we tend to like take like whatever, like one small thing or something, whatever it could be, and then just like blow that completely out of proportion and then forget like you mentioned, all the other things that like someone may be doing in service. And I mean, not that like, I mean, we should like understand also that like sometimes it's brought that one has to discriminate and this and that. That's there, but like that's like one has to discriminate from people that are like harming one in devotional service, not like some like a god brother or god sister in the temple that has some particular anartha, but they have that sincerity of purpose. So in general, like one should make a point to like see the good like in the other devotees and like want to see them come up, or then whatever, and then also seniors want to like serve them and help them. But that like one has to have like faith in that individual also, because there will be like tiring circumstances and difficulties, and if that like firm faith and relationship isn't there, then whenever there's some difficulty or some problem, then immediately it'll be like blaming somebody. So that has to be like cultivated, and that comes with like sincere service and surrender, and time, and taking, like it's mentioned, the Upadesh Samrita, like engaging. And how Rupa Goswami explains is how to engage with devotees by like revealing one's mind, taking instruction, giving prasadam like that, giving gifts and things. It's some small thing. I mean, there's not so much time.
Yeah, it's we have to be careful. It's like really careful with these things. But you have issues, then you should address them and try to rectify them and see what you can do about them, and present resolved in some way. Sometimes we may have a misconceptions. It's like we think some things are like this, and we're going on this route, and then we present it, and then we realize, well, actually, that whole thing was just like not valid at all. So many times that is there. So yeah, it can be difficult. It can be difficult, but if you keep yourself safe from being offensive, then it's easier to deal with it than going on a platform. If you become offensive to it, then you start to struggle with your own stuff, and then that makes it more difficult, and your anarthas come out, and so it can be difficult. But yeah, try to see what you can do, discuss with those approach others in your devotees, and to see what they're, like you were saying, see what they say and see how to deal with it. Yes, bro.
Just, I mean, like so many times, like whenever, I mean, like practically all the time, if I like have some problem or something on my mind, I like always just go, I mean, I may not necessarily even go to a senior devotee, but I just go to a devotee that I trust, senior or junior or whatever, and I just say like this is what I'm thinking, this is what I saw, whatever it is, what do you think about it? And then they always just say, hey, like, like it's not a big deal or whatever, and it's just like, so many times I just feel like I'm saved from like, just like the devotees ultimately. I mean, it's like, I mean, at least from my perspective, I mean, this might be against the Siddhanta, but it seems like devotees are more merciful. I can get the mercy easier, to be honest, at points.
Prabhupada says that in the in that verse of the where Krishna says, that in Bhagavad Gita 1867, is it? That where he says that those who preach, they're very dear to me, and then I think in that purport says the devotees are more merciful than the Lord, and so they preach because they preach the message to the masses of people. So yeah, I mean, one thing like what you said was like sometimes senior and sometimes even junior to you, and that just means like good association, that your association is able to rectify you, is able to satisfy you, is able to help you forward, not that your association pulls you down. So you go to someone to present a problem, and because they also have the same problem with the other person, they all get together and then pull themselves to the freaking hell, to go to hell, That happens with devotees. It's a lot of times. One devotee has a problem with one devotee, and then the other devotee also has a problem with that same devotee. But actually there's no problem, or there may be some problem, but it's not so significant, but they both get together and send themselves to hell. So good association. Don't take advice from those who are in good standing over a long period of time. Not just anyone. This is not recommended. Please don't just go to your friend. It's not just your friend. It's like go to a person who has been good standing, who is situated, who is level-headed, who is not, it's like, okay, one side or another. It's like there's some level of discussion there. It's important. Please don't just approach like, oh, I'm just going to go to my friend. Because depends on the friendship also. Because the friendship is just stuff like glorifying each other and just trying to satisfy each other is no use. Okay, all right, sorry, I've gone. Matijis have anything? Sorry, I'll give you. You sure you can ask it if you have anything? Okay. I don't want to be like, we didn't ask, we never get to let the Matijis have questions.
Just my question was like, you were talking about, those who worship these false idols. So like, we meet a lot of Christians that say that, Jesus is God. So in that circumstance, will they become a snake with, and,
The one thing about them, what I've understood is like, it's a little bit different than what is Mayavad. So, and they're more or less, they're ignorant, but not, they're envious in the sense that that's how they've been taught, because it's kind of crazy. But it doesn't seem that they're destined for hell because they eat meat and do so many sinful activities, and they don't follow Veda, they don't follow the Varnashram standard. But it's not exactly the same as what a Mayavadi is, right? Because they're like Mayavads, more or less, that we're all God, or that you're God, I'm God, and you follow that, and you take that to be what is Vedic. So you'll subscribe Vedic rules and regulations onto that bogus philosophy and say, okay, this is Veda. But it's not. Whereas these people, they're a little bit more innocent. They don't really know. They're ignorant. They're just completely ignorant. They don't. So it doesn't seem to be exactly the same category, because if you worship Jesus as God, that's more or less somehow or rather they've become misinformed. I don't know how that whole thing goes down. So it seems slightly different than what is like in what you see in Hindu culture. So I don't know, it's kind of like I don't think it's not the case where Ramanujacharya's and that person he describes who became a snake in his next life and all the ants ate him. So I don't it doesn't seem to be that same type of situation in regards to Christians, because they do seem to have some level of understanding there is God, but they take Jesus to be God. So it's a little more confusing, that one. Anything else? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.